Hello, San Francisco, and welcome once again to the Angelic Troublemakers. I'm your host, Alan Jones, and on today's program, homage to the volunteer chant. The volunteer chant. Well, I might as well tell you who the volunteer champ is. The volunteer champ is Muhammad Ali. I wrote a book, and in this book, which is my autobiography, I'm not going to plug it here financially. It was in San Francisco Public Library. But I tell a story in there. Well, it's a chapter about why and how I missed meeting Muhammad Ali. I told the story basically because it ties into my point on the volunteer chant and volunteering. Now, I'm going to get into that, but this week, it would have marked the 77th birthday of the late, great boxing champ Muhammad Ali. And in his life, we've seen and known him to do an awful lot of great things. But one of the things that he was quoted for saying, and I hope I get this quote right, was, "The service you do to others is the rent you pay for your time here on earth." I love that saying. But he dedicated his life, to helping others, as well as being a great boxer, a philanthropist, just giving his money away. He also helped people. And he went out of his way. Now, if you do your own research, you'll find there's 100 or more thousand stories on how Muhammad Ali helped people. But because it was January 17th, his birthday, 77th birthday this year, I decided to tell that story of how I missed meeting him, far as me being a volunteer is concerned, and the importance of it, of dedicating yourself to this issue of volunteering. Now, I have to also say that there is a poem that I'm going to put in there because it doesn't really match the story as far as volunteering, but it was a poem that I wrote maybe 25 or so years ago while volunteering. But before I get to that poem, let me tell you the story. I began going to church in 1983. And in this church, there was a gentleman, he was the drummer. His name was Mike Gopal. He worked up at the San Francisco Juvenile Hall. Sadly, he passed last year. But Mike Gopal was a one-of-a-kind individual. And I had joked that some of the people in the church should have a blood transfusion to get some of his blood, because this man, he just did everything. And there was nothing that he wouldn't do for someone else. And so always could get people to do something. But the fact of the matter is, he probably worked himself into a stroke. And his time on earth was cut short. He lived 10 or 15 years or longer in a nursing home. And it was sad because this man, he had the right spirit to helping. But sometimes you neglect certain things and it can cost you. And so he neglected his health. And that's my first warning on volunteering. But anyway, a few years into me being in church, there was another gentleman. He's now a minister back in Tennessee, I believe. His name was Greg Baskins. Now, Greg Baskins, he came to live with me. And then he found one of the ladies in the church, got married. I moved out of the place so that they could move in it. I mean, they could have newlyweds in their new little place. Well, Greg Baskins was a boxing fan. And so as he's this big boxing fan, he heard that Muhammad Ali was going to be in San Jose, California, in an autograph signing event. Now, at the time, I believe, don't quote me, but at the time, Muhammad Ali was probably charging $10,000 for an hour's worth of work because of his fame. And so, at this event, this Greg Baskins told Mike Gopal, I'm going to see the champ. And a light came on into Mike Gopal's head, and he says, well, hey, I got my camera. Let's go down there. And they plotted. They said, we might be able to get him to say something, on camera about the kid to encourage the kids up at the juvenile hall. So they said, okay. Well, now, I knew of this, and though they were suggesting that I come along with them, I was basically, no, y'all go on and do your thing, because I did not believe that there was a ghost of a chance that they would be able to talk to the champ. And so they went on to San Jose, and they patiently waited till everybody was finished with the event. And Mike Gopal hands Muhammad Ali a note. And on the note, it simply read, the kids at the San Francisco Juvenile Hall could use a lift. And so Muhammad Ali, in the early stages of Parkinson's, he leaned over to his driver and whispered, get the car. And so I don't know what happened in how this actually happened. I mean, what other things were going on there, what other communications that they've had. But Muhammad Ali followed Greg Baskins and Mike Gopal 40 miles back to San Francisco based on that note. And they went straight up to the juvenile hall and went to all the units, and the champ was shaking hands, talking, shadow boxing with the kids. Where was I? I usually went up. It was a Monday. I usually went up to juvenile hall to do my Monday counseling. But I've been going on there 5 days a week, sometimes 6. And so I decided, since there was a football game, I'll just stay home this one night. Well, wouldn't you know it? They were able to bring Muhammad Ali up to juvenile hall. And because I, a volunteer at the San Francisco Juvenile Hall, in the maximum security unit of juvenile hall, where I ministered to the murderers, rapists, and gang members mostly, missed out on an opportunity to meet my boxing idol, the champ, because I just decided to take the night off. And we should never get weary in well-doing. That is a scripture in the Bible. Well, I did, and I lost out on an opportunity. And so when the next night came around, after I had heard of, what had happened, then one of the kids up at the juvenile hall at the time, he was so bubbly. This kid was really something else. And he had told me how he had shadow boxed with Muhammad Ali, and, he just did the whole place was, just beaming over this event. But just think, Muhammad Ali is handed a note. As busy as he is, he dropped everything that he was doing to encourage the kids 40 miles away in San Francisco. I think that's, that's something else. That really inspired me in a way to where I realized how some people take on the responsibility of helping out where they can, where they're needed. And I can't tell you how much it means to me that this story, even though I lost out, has helped me. Now, do I volunteer today? Well, not as much. I'm getting up there and, things are changing. But I'm bringing this to you because I believe in volunteering. If I had a favorite word, not that I do, but if I had a favorite word, it would be volunteering, because I understand the importance. I was taught right in church. And all of the shenanigans that people be doing and, what's in it for me and stuff like that. Oh, there's a lot of people who help out, but they do it with the wrong spirit. Not Muhammad Ali. He did it with the right spirit. And I mean, just imagine 40-mile journey just because someone slipped him a note. That's powerful. I wish that I could drop whatever I'm doing to help somebody out who I feel really needs it. And I look forward to the opportunity because there's so many people who need help. One of the words that I hate most in the English language is bored. I'm bored. You've heard that term a lot. Well, as much as we know that there's so much around as far as trouble and who needs help, how can a person say they're bored? God has given us all a creative mind. How can you say you're bored? I'm telling you, it is the least favorite word, if I had a least favorite word, in the English dictionary. Because there's so many people that are crying out for help. Just somebody come by and just speak to me. It reminds me of the time where I was really lonely and needed someone to talk to, or wanted somebody to talk to. And as God is my witness, I screamed to God. I says, God, if nobody talks to me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Or something to that effect. And I was standing next to a phone in my home. And the phone rang. And the person who was on the other end was a funny person from the neighborhood. And they just lifted me up. And it was right after I had made this call to God. Now, I say that to say that some people you can only pray for. Others, you are the answer to their prayer. And so don't just brush them off. Recognize or learn to recognize how you can help others. Being aware of your surroundings is numero uno. I am pretty good, I would say excellent, at recognizing my surroundings. And I'm telling you that there's a lot of people who are really good at it. I was driving down the street earlier today, and I seen this guy walking down the street, and he handed a bag to a homeless person in a doorway. And this person, just out of the kindness of his heart, was not judging this homeless individual, but saw a need and he wanted to do something for it. The person must have seen him earlier, because the bag that he handed him, it was not a paper bag. You know, it was a cloth bag and it had a whole bunch of stuff in it. So I say, seeing the situation, I know that the person, you know, saw a person in need and decided he wanted to help him. And I've seen it constantly. No matter where I go, I see people helping out. And I'm encouraging you, find someone to help. There's all kinds of things that can get us down. Also, in this book, I tell the story, Lonely on the Down Low. It's a chapter in here. That's what I titled it. And what it was is, in this autobiography of mine, I told the story of what I did when I was lonely. And what was it? Help somebody out. Now, if you ever find this book, Case Game, Activating the Activist, you'll be shocked of the story that I tell. Because believe me, I wasn't up to any good. And when I was not up to any good, I still found a way to do some good. Go figure. I'm not claiming to be perfect. I'm claiming to be aware of my surroundings. There's another story in here. You're not going to believe this story. Now, you know I'm a homosexual. Well, I tell you, I tried to pick up somebody and found out that the person wasn't into me. But the person had a problem. And I detected that problem. And so I inquired. We became friends. I think it's 15, 16 years and counting. But one day, this person told me, and this is 5 years later, that person told me where they were standing when I saw them. They were trying to figure out where to go to commit suicide. Being aware of your surroundings. You don't have to go to these big old programs, Habitat for Humanity, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying you don't have to go through all this formal process to be a volunteer. Just be aware of your surroundings and you can find someone to help. I think that it is interesting. My lust turned into saving somebody's life. Now I know you think, well, Alan, that's too much information. Well, it's a true story. And I tell it in this book. And I tell it because I know that God has many people who have a special sense of their surroundings. And these people know how, because it's innate, it's in them to help others. And I'm saying that you may be feeling, well, I want to help. Well, just go do it, as Nike would say. Just do it. You don't have to go down to St. Anthony's. All you have to do is go in your closet, pick a bunch of clothes, shoes, clean this, clean that, and a whole bunch of food, and go out the door. If it's clean, somebody needs it. If it's food, I guarantee you'll find somebody. All you have to do is just go out your house when you claim that you're bored, when nothing else is on the TV. All you have to do is just go find somebody and be prepared. Now, when I say be prepared, I mean you really should get a hold of God first. And when I say that you should get a hold of God first, it's because God wants to guide us to certain individuals. And though we can all find someone to help, there are certain special individuals that God has a special message for. And he's looking for more people to reach out to these individuals and let them know that God sees them. God knows that they're hurting. God knows that they need help. And God hears their prayers. And when God is hearing their prayers, he's looking for somebody to answer those prayers. Now, true, there are some things where people, I don't know whether I can help this person. Well, I can tell you, I myself seen this homeless drunk, and he really looked bad. And I mean, every time I seen him, it was, oh no, you're beyond help. That was my thought. And I claim to be a person who's greatly aware. But what had happened was, one day I seen this guy coming down the street, clean shaven, new clothes on, a Bible in his hand, and it was the same individual. And God just let me know, Alan, I tried to get you to talk to this person, but I had to find somebody else. Thank God I did. But the fact is, God is saying, thank God. No. So the issue is this individual coming down the street, as clean as he was, he shocked me beyond belief. Because I knew that it was a worthless bum. I didn't know what I was doing. So even those of us, now, please, you do have to think of your safety. I'm not saying if you're 4'2" and you see somebody who's 6'5" and they've got a bad attitude and they need help, I don't expect you to offer them help. I suggest that you find somebody of your stature or smaller, because the thing is you never know. And I'm saying to you that to be on the safe side, I would say that you have to pick and choose who you're going to help based on the fact that you may need to defend yourself. I'm just being honest. I'm not saying that everybody that you help is going to have a receiving type spirit. But the better chances are somebody who's your own, who matches up with you well. Now, I'm not saying don't help somebody who's bigger than you. Test the spirit to see if it's of God. And God will help you. But I have a poem. And this poem was also based on somebody who wanted to commit suicide. They didn't say suicide, but the conversation we were having, they told me they wanted to give up. And it was because I was a volunteer. I promised this person that I'd bring them this poem, and this poem changed their attitude. And it goes like this. The title is Miss Quitter. If you, I can't remember the poem. It's in my book. Miss Quitter. I'm going to look it up. Uh-oh, I'm running out of time. I'm going to have to do this in another program because the program is running close. But let me try. Miss Quitter, my name is Mr. Devil, and I introduce to thee 2 compatible hearts for a wedding ceremony. First, there's Mr. Loser, the society he would blame. Then there's Miss Quitter, who is about to change her name. I found Miss Quitter right in the community church. Looking for a husband, I offered to help her search. I met Mr. Loser one night while out on the town. I jumped for joy, shouting, "Look what I have found." They were meant for one another. It was very plain to see. I even got old jealous Cupid to agree reluctantly. Now, on the day of the wedding, I met family and friends. The best man and maid of honor were Mr. and Mrs. Criticism. Mr. and Mrs. Negative had nothing negative to say, and Mr. and Mrs. Complaint were happy on that day. Do you, Mr. Loser, take Miss Quitter for a wife? Oh, yes, Mr. Devil, for the rest of my life. And do you, Miss Quitter, take Mr. Loser for a husband? Oh, yes, Mr. Devil, this is my kind of man. Now let's have the ring, made of unforgettable misery, and place it on her finger for all the world to see. I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Loser on this very special day, and losers you shall be forever unless God changes your ways. Now, I wrote this poem because this young man was trying to tell me that he wanted to give up. And when I said, but a quitter's going to become a loser, he said, so? And so I started thinking. And I said, I know how to get him. That got him. And I'm saying to you, if you allow God to train you, you too will become a volunteer champ. So until next time, I say God bless and go out there and help somebody. And in San Francisco, I'm telling you, if you can't find one of the 7,000 people on the streets who need help, well, who do you think you're kidding?